Right, yeah, we are here with game number 3, and this is a Z1's casual cast with Mike over here. And Mike and I are just going to be taking you through this game. And this is BratOK versus SjoW, game number 3 in the ESL Go4SC2 Cup number 37. Quite a few euros at stake over here, and this is the semi-final. And of course, the winner of this particular game will go through to the final, because this is a best of 3, and we had SjoW take the first one, we had BratOK take the second in a very lengthy fight on Lost Temple, and now we're on to Blistering Sands. Of course, this is SjoW's map choice as we move through here. So we're going to see some cunning maneuvers from him. Let's see what goes on in this particular game. Probably much the same as we saw in the previous two, Michael. Some tanks, there's a bit of Vikings, a bit of Marine Marauder, probably more Marauder heavy than anything else, given that they just hold out to those tanks a little longer.
I think given the extra HP, Marauders with lots of medivacs actually end up being more useful than Master Marines. In the first game, SjoW going a lot of Marauders and medvacs and the Vikings, and actually having no tanks, if I remember correctly. Whereas BratOK did add tanks in, which didn't really prove to be very effective.
I gotta agree with that. You know,
I think on this map, being such a small map and being SjoW's choice, I think we'll probably see something quite similar from him as we did in the first game. BratOK, I think, having better macro overall and using that to his advantage in Lost Temple to really just slowly but surely overwhelm SjoW.
Yeah,
I think it's quite possible that SjoW might have the advantage on the small map. Even though BratOK is a favorite, SjoW has shown that in the short game he's quite effective.
As things get dragged out a little longer, I think it does go sway in BratOK's favor. I think BratOK's got a little bit of temperament than SjoW, and maybe can last out a bit longer. I have seen him featured in more tournaments, so I think he might have a bit more BMT. But of course, SjoW, of course, he is a prominent pro gamer. He's been in the scene for quite a while, so he's obviously got quite a temperament in himself. So when a game gets to that particular length, I think these players are on even terms. Although I would still give it to BratOK. BratOK's still the guy who's featured more in these StarCraft 2 tournaments, and is just a little more big into the scene. But early factory from SjoW on the one side, we've got much the same from BratOK, but BratOK opting for an even earlier factory. If I remember correctly, his build order went something like supply depot, refinery, and then a barracks. So he actually delayed his barracks and therefore delayed his orbital command by a little bit, just so he can get this earlier factory out. And that's all done so he can get the starport out, of course, as well. That's just gone up now. So he's already got the starport underway, and SjoW has just finished his factory. So he's obviously going for some kind of early, maybe Banshee harass, something like that. I'm not seeing a second gas though, so I wouldn't necessarily jump to a conclusion and say that he's going to go these early Banshees, but we may see it.
I just see BratOK take a bit more advantage of the fact that SjoW doesn't seem to be very big into scouting early, and usually only scouts with his first Helion, as he's doing now. I would have very much enjoyed seeing some sort of kind of proxy rush against SjoW, kind of to put him off guard and put the pressure on.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with you there. I'm quite favourable to an early game start, players rushing and whatnot. But we did see BratOK is kind of aware that he did scout out his natural for any kind of proxy maneuvers that went on early game, but that didn't take place at all. So BratOK fully aware of any kind of proxy maneuvers. Also, when it comes to a third game like this, I don't think players will be too keen on rushing. There's a lot on the line, and they might not be that keen on. There's that early Banshee coming out, as I mentioned, and it looks like he might just throw that into his force and try to do a little pusher with the 3 Helions, a couple Marines, and try to push into SjoW's base here. He does have the early Helion, so maybe SjoW won't be expecting it. But what SjoW will have is a Viking and a medvac at the same time, given the reactor on his starport. I've seen a lot of this place, the early reactor on the starport. You build it on your factory, you swap it down on the starport, and you get that medvac and the Viking out nice and early. Helps out quite a lot in a TVT matchup.
SjoW again using his factory to serve as an early warning for a drop. I quite like it, considering that he doesn't really go much into tanks. And the fact that he has listed off and doesn't have another factory leads me to believe he's probably going to go for Mass Marauder, Mass Medvac, and Mass Vikings as his strat.
Yeah, more than likely the case, and of course that little Marauder served as a good early warning for this force that's coming into his base now. Now that Banshee isn't going to last too long, but what is going to last long is these SjoW's forces actually, because he does such a great job of taking out this force. He does lose a couple of SCVs in the fight, and if I take a look at the income tab, he still maintains the same number of SCVs as BratOK. So some good play there by SjoW to stay in this game. I think those two medvacs really saved him there, and good play, yeah, to hold off that attack by BratOK. That early attack usually so effective against Terran players, but not in this case. I think if anything, BratOK was probably hoping that SjoW had thrown down that early expo, but he's only throwing it down now that he's got a little bit of a window to play with. So maybe BratOK just jumping to conclusions there, and should have scouted a bit more effectively before he maybe made that attack.
I agree. BratOK now building a command center, hoping to expand, realizing that SjoW's probably going to try and expand himself. I would have liked to see maybe the Helians going in first, just to quickly scout the situation before losing his entire force. Really giving, he's using his SCVs, knowing that he needs a little bit of an advantage, but at what cost?
Yeah, it is quite a cost at that. SjoW a little wiser than BratOK and pulling out a bit sooner. Yeah, that's going to work out for him, while SjoW just saving his units a little bit, And of course, that was quite an important part of, I know I'm bringing it back to Warcraft 3, but quite an important part about Warcraft 3 is preserving your units, where it's not such a big factor in StarCraft 2 because of the macro capabilities and its econ wars more so than actually micro wars. So in Warcraft 3, you obviously didn't throw away a lot of units quite often, you saved on to quite a few of them.
Yeah, as much as possible. I mean, units, because the game's played with a lower population count, each unit counts for more. Fewer expansions, fewer lower population limits kind of tend to make the game more bot-like. Probably like a dozen units or so at a time, rather than large armies, the way StarCraft does. Also with Warcraft, units are often, comparatively speaking, the maps are smaller and the units are faster. So an advantage can be pushed a lot faster. Having yours as well, it's very easy to split groups into multiple parts and harass simultaneously without too much risk. I think BratOK, obviously, very much on the back foot, having his command center destroyed in SjoW's counterattack while SjoW's expansion has gone up. He's at an economic and a unit advantage. It would take something quite special for him here. But then again, we were just talking about this, his match temperament, obviously having probably a lot of experience. I think it's going to take this in this game to pull this back. If SjoW doesn't make any big mistakes this game, I really think he should have it.
Yeah, absolutely. He's gone off to such a great start against BratOK over here, and that's something you shouldn't take lightly as a good start against a good player like BratOK. You really take an advantage like this and use it to your full potential. And that's exactly what he's doing. I mean, he's camping outside BratOK's base here. Looks like he's moving down on these destructible rocks, and he's going to be pummeling away at those and really taking a bit of initiative over here. BratOK is expanding, but a little bit of a risky, cheeky expo here. I don't expect that expo to stay up too long. And I love SjoW's move over here. He takes down these destructibles, but he doesn't necessarily push up. He just leaves BratOK that little bit more vulnerable, and settles him a little bit. And now look at him, he's moving on this natural expansion over here. He's managed to send BratOK's forces to the one side, but BratOK, good siege tank placement there, manages to take out quite a few Marines. And this might have been the mistake that BratOK was hoping for, that SjoW would make. And SjoW losing quite a few units. He does load up just a few in those medvacs and pulls out just in the nick of time. So I think if we were waiting for a mistake from SjoW, that was it right there.
I have to agree. BratOK making quite a turnaround now, equalizing with economy.
And I think he's slowly but surely clawing himself back into this game. What I'd like to see him do is take advantage of that top Zelnagata as well as the bottom one, and then he can really bring himself back into this game. Look at these Marines chasing down those Marauders. They have to pull back. But I think that BratOK's a little nervous of siege tanks, and because of course this stage of the game, siege tanks so vital, but SjoW does not have any of that just yet. And in fact, he's still not making use of the factory for anything else but scouting purposes. So he maybe wants to think about getting a factory up. Looks like SjoW just missed waypointing to Marines there. They get punished. BratOK at this stage, he's got a bit of a window, and I would say he might want to look at expanding again. You know, he's got this tiny window of advantage. He's got SjoW now back on the back foot. So maybe he wants to just take a couple of Marines from his base, head on over to the destructible rocks by the rich minerals, and take those out and start expanding over there. I think that would be a good move. BratOK now just running forward with the Marine there. He just wants to make sure that there's no tanks up on the cliffs to come take him out as he tries to put pressure on this natural event of SjoW's.
I quite like how BratOK has adjusted to SjoW's general strategy. Instead of going Marauders himself, and knowing that SjoW tends to go lots of Marauders and no tanks, he's actually built mass Marines to meat shield these tanks against the Marauders, trying to push his advantage this way. But SjoW now making a perfect drop in BratOK's base and punishing him for not having any defenses. It's going to be quite a big blow to
BratOK. Yeah, absolutely. He may even lose his orbital command from this, and I think BratOK has to do something of a base race here to try to take this one. This turns quite intense here. SjoW has now lost that expansion of his. Now, to note is that you may think that BratOK may be a bit screwed here as he loses his main and his natural, but look at SjoW. Look how many minerals he's got left on his main mineral line. That's all the income he's got left, and of course we know StarCraft 2 is all about income. So right now, both players, despite appearing as if BratOK's on the back foot here, BratOK's still very much in this game, and still very neck and neck. BratOK's now moving his orbital command to the 6 o'clock expand. It looks like he's moving his other one to the rich minerals over here, but those destructibles still in the way. He's going to have to move them around, maybe do some long distance mining. Let's see what he can do here. A lot of Marines still punishing away at SjoW's base here. He could make better use of those and move them forward, maybe throw down a stim and take out more of SjoW's unit producing buildings before his force gets too large to deal with. Look at that force of SjoW, it's so big. I don't think BratOK's going to be able to deal with these. Those siege tanks going up a little too late, and they are going to get sniped down. There's one siege tank down, there's two siege tanks down, there's a third, and there's just one siege tank left for BratOK. If BratOK wanted to stay in this game, he had to keep those siege tanks up. And it doesn't look like it's going to happen for him right now. Looks like BratOK has lost everything, but he still thinks he's in this game. But it looks like SjoW's going to end this game over here. He's marching through BratOK's base with a clearly superior force. No tanks for BratOK to hold off this particular force. And it looks like it may be a good game here. He is lifting off everything, flying it out of there as quickly as he can. I don't know if it's going to make as much difference. Of course, we do have SjoW left with absolutely nothing. But look at this. He's thrown up a factory there by the rich mineral expansion of BratOK. But BratOK's Marines over there. He's going to be throwing up a couple of bunkers, trying everything he can to stay in this game. SjoW now just moving his orbital command to his natural. You know, I think at this stage it's a little too late. BratOK being supply capped, we really need something quite special to pull this game back. Sending his factory into SjoW's base. I'm not sure if he's scouting. Yeah, I'm not sure what his intention is with that factory either. He might try to be landing it and build a few units from it, but it's not going to help out much. These bunkers aren't going to stand very well either, you know. And they're just going to fall to these stimmed up Marauders. Look at that. The Marauders just coming through, finishing everything off. And I think that's GG right there, as BratOK said. Well, that's the end of game 3, and well, thank you very much for casting with me today, Michael 1.
Not a problem. Pleasure to be here.
Cool beans. Catch you around.